Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 3 of the EuRA Spring Summit. So I am Alistair Murray. I am Chief Operating Officer for Packing PECs across the whole of Europe, and also a EuRA board member. So today we have another shorter agenda for about an hour and a quarter. Two great sessions. We have Carl McLean from AirINC delivering his Mobility Outlook survey. And then we have an Ignite session from Tracy Kautzmann of the Impact Group. So two really great sessions to look forward to. Now, the EuRA board meet every couple of weeks, and the last time we met, obviously on Zoom, our wonderful president, Michelle, said that this headset makes me look like a pilot, which was great. So I think now is the time for me to say everyone needs to relax, to take their seats, to fasten their seatbelts, sit back, relax. Hopefully you've got your own drinks, your own snacks, and you can enjoy a short video from our sponsors, Nordic Relocation. I love that, such a great video. Seeing so many familiar faces having a wonderful time at conferences, it kind of gives you mixed feelings. I know we're all desperate to go back and do that again. So yeah, really lovely. And to see Åsa and her team enjoying themselves, various events, various conferences in different cities is fantastic. So I would just like to say thank you very much to all at Nordic Relocation for your sponsorship. Events like this aren't really possible without the sponsors, so your generosity, your loyalty is really appreciated. So thank you ever so much to Åsa and the team. We now have a presentation from Carl McLean of AirINC. As I say, Carl is going to be presenting the Mobility Outlook survey. Carl's been a client services manager at AirINC for 5 years and has been working on this survey on a regular basis, but I think this year more than ever, the results are fascinating. So they've asked 200 of the biggest companies in the world how they feel currently about the future of our industry and how that may look in the next year, not just in terms of adapting policies, but whether people are willing to relocate, and also the impact of people working remotely and how that will impact the work that we all do. So yeah, really pertinent, really relevant, fascinating presentation ahead. So Carl, over to you.
Thank you very much, Alistair. That's very kind of you. Hi, everybody. So welcome. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm very honored to be here to be able to speak.
We may be having some trouble with the sound. Hopefully everyone can hear me, but I couldn't hear you, Carl. This could be good. So I could be giving a presentation on the AirINC Mobility Outlook survey if I'm not careful.
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Now, yeah. What a relief that is. You're back.
There we go. There we go. So this is the old classic knocking the mute button with your knee inadvertently.
Okay. I'm very, very pleased you're back.
Okay, very good, Alistair. No, thank you very much for the introduction. That's very kind of you. I'm very pleased to be here, not only today to present to everybody what I hope are some valuable insights, but also I'm just pleased to be here. In general, we've had an extraordinarily difficult year in mobility. The fact that we're all here today is testament to our own abilities and the quality and character of the companies that we represent in the marketplace. Alistair's given a little bit of background in terms of what I do, what my background is. Just to give you a quick idea, we'll show you a short video of AirINC and who we are in a moment. But basically, we're a data mobility company. We provide expat data for expats that could include allowances they might receive, housing budgets, cost of living allowances, cost estimates, local to local pay calculations, that sort of thing. My background was expat tax and consulting in Big Four. And as Alistair mentioned, I'm in my 5th year at AirINC and very pleased to be here. I will just hand over, and I think we can watch a short video, just again, literally just 2 minutes explaining what we do, and then we'll get stuck into the results of the Mobility Outlook survey for 2021.
When a company sends employees abroad, there are often many questions that can be hard to answer. How much should I pay the employee and in what currency? Should I contribute to housing costs? Does the assignment duration matter? These questions arise whether your company has a small expat population or sends thousands of employees abroad. At AirINC, we have the expertise to answer these types of questions. We work closely with our clients to determine the best solution and pay structure using our highly accurate and defensible data and our professional service. But how does it work? Let's look at a simple decision tree that starts with this basic question. From here, there are 3 typical outcomes with particular compensation structures. For short-term assignments of under 12 months, the daily housing and living allowances can be calculated with our short-term assignment calculator. For long-term assignments of over 12 months, pay is typically home-based and tax-equalized, with a cost of living allowance, or COLA, provided to account for differences in living costs. A host housing allowance is also typically provided. We can provide a balance sheet showing these figures. For one-way international transfers, our host pay calculator will help determine an appropriate local salary to ensure that the offered package considers differences in taxes, cost of living and housing. In just a few clicks, HPC calculates an economically equivalent salary between 2 locations. We can also evaluate and write your mobility policies and advise on many other issues related to expat pay. AirINC is not just about the numbers. We understand that sending employees abroad touches personal lives. Our high level of service reflects this, as our friendly and professional team supports your questions with personalized advice. Our account managers are highly specialized in global mobility, drawing on their own knowledge, as well as AirINC's expertise since 1954. AirINC is the solution when it comes to helping your business become global.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, so this is the Mobility Outlook survey for 2021. This is something that we at AirINC have run for several years. We ask our largest clients and the most, the preeminent key clients in the mobility industry questions of how mobility is going for them at the moment, where they think it's going to go. And we do this because we do it over several years, we've got a really good feel for where the market might be going and what the trends are. A lot of the time, they're not extraordinarily surprising. A lot of the time they are, or they maybe give comfort to some assumptions that we all feel or think are happening from conversations we have. So I'll say a few things at the start. First of all, the Whova app has an facility to ask questions. There is a lot of data in this. So please feel free to ask any question you like. About half or 2/3 of the way through, there is a natural break in the presentation, and I will take time to try and answer some of those questions. Furthermore, if you haven't had a chance to read the Mobility Outlook survey or any of the related documents that we've produced, do let me know after the presentation, and I'll send those over to you on whatever you need. So please don't feel that you've got to take every single detail and factoid that we're about to go through. So this is looking at what do the mobility leaders across the globe predict for 2021 and their plans for making the most of the unique opportunities presented this year. I'm about to go through the slides quickly. What I want you to, I probably don't need to tell you this, but what I'm trying to get to in each of these is like, so what? And why does this matter for DSPs? Why does this matter for vendors in each situation? How is this relevant to you? Is there anything you can do as a vendor that touches the concerns and priorities your clients have as reported in this document? Can you help your clients on any of these? Is your offering going to change according to where the market appears to be moving to? Obviously, mobility has experienced an incredibly difficult year, but it did also provide an opportunity for a lot of mobility teams to showcase their knowledge and agility over 2 or 3 key competencies. And for many, they finally did get a voice and a seat at the table that they've always wanted to be at in terms of trying to help people and the company at a more strategic level rather than just being a reactive unit that does what they need to do yesterday. And for those efforts, I think the perception of mobility has in many cases been enhanced and has fundamentally changed, and there is greater appreciation for the work people do. So 2021 for a lot of people, and this is already underway, is a time and a year in which many of your clients will be using that momentum and that kind of credit that they earned to mobility's advantage. It is a year in which they will be looking to build stronger partnerships internally with stakeholders, but they'll also be looking for stronger partnerships, I think, from their vendors that will give mobility the insights that they need to add value. They will be, and they currently are, making key changes in many cases to their program, changes that will help organizations attract and keep the talent needed to succeed. So without further ado, just to give a cut of the report in terms of who was surveyed. So you can see that we've surveyed people all across the globe. Europe is particularly well represented with 42%. And we also have several industries that were represented as well. I mentioned that not just to give you comfort that it's a good all of the world report with everybody's voice included, but also we do have specific cuts of this report specific to Switzerland, France, Germany, the UK, and for I think 8 industries as well. So again, as well as if you need the main report, do let me know if you need any specific cut, and I will be very pleased to get that to you. So on this slide, we asked the question of all of our clients about mobility's mission. And there are 2 pieces here. There's what their current objective is, and that's in the darker blue. And then there is in the kind of teal color where they would like it to get to. And I think these are telling. So the lower score, the closest it is to being a higher objective. In currently, the highest objective is the 3rd column, which is to operate efficiently and compliantly. Now, it's no surprise why that is, because COVID threw a curveball to everybody. People started working all over the place. People had to be repatriated in emergency situations, and compliance suddenly became hugely to the fore. And indeed, there are now going to be a ton of residual compliance and risk issues as well that people have to deal with. That was not so high in previous years. And as you can see, they would your clients would rather that dropped back down the list, where it is less of a priority. It's more of an assumption that those things are working well. The first column is most interesting. Currently, enabling the global talent strategy is not the highest priority of most of our clients, but it is certainly the highest priority of where they would like to get to, which is to be a genuine partner to the business, not just a reactive unit that does what they need to do. And I think that again is fairly unsurprising in terms of to advise the business on the best ways to deploy talent globally. They're pretty much where they want to be. And likewise, in terms of delivering an excellent employee experience, That is kind of interesting, because at the moment that's the bottom. It looks like the bottom priority, which is actually contradicted by a lot of the further findings in the report. The employee experience is still absolutely first and foremost, but I think what this is saying is that operating efficiently and compliantly and delivering employees and assignees an excellent experience is now just considered a given. It's not a sign of success if you're doing that, but it is a sign of failure if you're not doing that. So people kind of want that to be a given, and that's now a minimum standard. A silent running, perfectly happy, impossible situation of always happy expats, ideally moving for very low costs as well. But clearly what this is teasing out is that there is now a key link to talent and strategy, and mobility feels more than ever that they have a right to be at that table and having those discussions. They do want to be part of the solution to the question of getting and retaining global talent. So moving on to the next, I'll just give you a moment to read through those. This was, we were asking, what are the top initiatives that you will focus on in the next couple of years? And that multiple choice was permitted. You can see far and away, the two largest ones are aligning the mobility program with the talent strategy and improving the employee experience, which, as I say, sits rather oddly with the previous comment. So while about half of companies say that aligning mobility with talent strategy is a top priority over the next 2 years, many also do report that the relationship with that talent function could be improved. From speaking with mobility leaders that have made progress in this area, it's where they've engaged their talent partners in the early stages of a program update, and we're able to effectively communicate the benefits for the company and its people when the two functions work together. Now, if you look at the top 5 here, from talent strategy, employee experience, streamlining, advising the business, and improving technology, you could make the case that 3 of those are around efficiency. None of them is really mentioning compliance. So they do suggest, who are your customers, namely the business and the assignee. And I think understanding who your customers and stakeholders are is key to getting them what they need, even if they don't always realize it. So given that it appears to be that business, the business in the wider sense, and the assignees are the stakeholders, are the customers. First of all, we asked a business-focused question, and that was on demonstrating value. It was whether mobility does in fact demonstrate its value to the organization through analytics or metrics. So reporting on measurable outcomes through dashboards, the usual stuff. You do have mobility wanting to align with talent strategy. So do they actually report back ways in which their function adds value? You'd think if they don't want to be overlooked that they would do that. Now, 39% say they do sometimes do this, okay? But only 21% of them are regularly using these metrics to advise their customers or to advocate for change or to demonstrate how mobility serves broader organizational goals. And I would say that 21% is surprisingly low, given where they want to be as a partner in the global talent race. And we might ask why that is. Are they too busy? Do they not have the data to report? Are they just trying to get through a traumatic year? But again, the question is, as a DSP, as a vendor, can you help your clients with anything here? Is there data that you can feed to your clients? I mean, you of all people know when things don't go well, but you also know when things do go well. We often report on the first and not the second, but is there anything that you can feed your clients to help them get the answers there? So again, measuring mobility's success, we were asking clients, what is it to be for mobility for you to be successful? And again, 2 things that are in front, one's way in front is positive feedback from the business and positive feedback from HR. Looking at the compliance risks third, but then the 4th is again positive feedback received through assignee surveys. So 3 of the top 4 responses relate to basically happy expats or a happy business. That is positive feedback from the business and HR and the assignees are the most important marker of success for your clients. But but most functions don't collect that input in a structured way. Our point, what we think this is leading to tell us, is the proactive and regular collection of feedback is going to help mobility establish and sustain its relationships, and allow that function, to continually adapt as business environments and needs change. So again, in terms of feedback, we asked the question: do you regularly gather the voice of the customer in terms of business functions or leadership through surveys to understand expectations and need? Now, remember, a few slides back, we said getting positive feedback from the business was an indicator of a successful program. But here, if you look on the top just to the right, only 13% are conducting surveys of the business regularly. So again, there's a disconnect there. 36% do it sometimes. So, all in all, it's not a dreadful situation, but there is clearly a disconnect, and you have to ask the question why that is. I appreciate I'm rushing through this, by the way, but don't worry, you'll get provided with all of these. In terms of global mobility's stakeholder relationships, we asked, we parsed out 5 stakeholders: talent management, talent acquisition, senior management, business, and HR business partners. Again, the blue, which is in the bottom in each case, is where the relationship currently stands, and the teal is where they'd like the relationship to get to. So the first thing I'd say is pretty much your clients are where they want to be in terms of the relationships with senior management and business. They would like to have, they are not where they want to be in terms of the relationship with talent management and talent acquisition. Where they want to be is the relationship that they want to have that are strongest are actually with talent management, talent acquisition, and indeed improved relationships with HR business partners. So that makes sense. People want mobility's profile to be raised. They want to be part of the race for talent. That makes sense. But again, I think that disconnect will often always be there. It has been there for some time, even before COVID. But how do people bridge that gap? How do you help your clients bridge that gap? So this slide represents the top requests that were coming from the business, the big asks that business was making of their mobility functions. 3 big asks: costs need to be more predictable, costs need to be contained, and you need to speed things up to get assignments moving. It's understandable that they would be corporate and operationally focused. And 2 of them out of the 3 relate to program costs. Right? So we know expat assignments are expensive. We know compliance costs are significant and unavoidable. Cost predictability and flexibility should be within mobility's control. So from a mobility perspective, internally, that's why they're going to be racing to get this fit for purpose suite of policies, resources to support, flexible programs, consultative approach, all the rest of it, so they can help the business balance their long and short term objectives, but also budgets. But I think it is worth pausing here and again asking the question: how can we help here? Maybe we can't, but we need to know that it's around the corner. The questions around cost are not going away. Are there things we can do to help clients? Later on in the slides, we'll see that what are being provided, what services are being provided to expats is changing. The types of moves are changing. Maybe it's that we can, operate and offer our services under different wrappers, more flexible wrappers, to account for the changing needs of mobility. This is probably the least surprising slide in the deck that I'll share. Do you expect the need for business flexibility to change in future? 3% it'll decrease. 1/3 think it'll stay the same. 2/3 think that flexibility, demands for flexibility from the business will increase. That was perhaps very predictable. What does demand for flexibility look like? What does that entail? Does that mean more policies? Does it mean more flexibility? Does it mean more one-off negotiations? Well, we asked the question: how would your clients, your mobility functions, need to respond to an increased need for flexibility from the business in future? So just over half are expecting to have to add in more flexibility to existing policies. So not necessarily multiplying the number of policies, but having policies that have a core or flex element, that you identify the bucket of the policy bracket that someone should fall into, but within that, depending on specific circumstances, you can flex that up or down where the expat will get more or get less. And again, I say that because that may be something that you need to think about when you're presenting your offerings to clients and prospects. 28% will expect to use a greater variety of policy types than in the past. I'm actually surprised that's that low. There is an upward trend, once again, towards more policies. And 17% expect that they may have more negotiated packages. I suspect that's not where they want to go. I suspect that's not where you want to go or we want to go as vendors. It may just be that that's considered unavoidable, but certainly the more you can mitigate the need to go for negotiated one-off packages, the better, because if anything blows costs and budgets out of the water with what's agreed and the precedents that sets, it's negotiated packages. But again, I just ask you to be mindful about that in terms of what you're currently providing to your clients. Is that flexible enough? Are you providing a whole suite which, with its whole cost, may put people off if things actually in the future are going to be a lot more flexible in terms of what people get and what they don't get? Can you flick on and off the buttons easily enough in terms of the suite of what you offer? And about 19%, by the way, said, we're good. We don't think there's going to be increased need for flexibility from business. So we talked about two customers, the business and the expat. So this is, we asked the question of, again, whether they're gathering the voice of the expat population through surveys to understand expectations and needs. Now here we can see that it's not too bad. 27% are doing this regularly. If you look at the purple on the top right, so they regularly conduct voice of the customer or engagement surveys of expats. 33% do it ad hoc. So overall, you're at 60%, but 34% don't. Now again, 27% is okay. It's much better than the business figure, which was 13%. But 34% of just not checking with expats is not good. Employees report that having a positive or worthwhile mobility experience happens when their personal and professional priorities are met. Now, it's not immediately obvious what those might be, and I don't know how we can be sure of what those are without asking and finding out. Likewise, it's difficult to find out where the bumps in the road are with expatriate moves, again, if we're not asking the employees directly. So companies seeking to deliver a positive employee experience, which they claim to be, you'd think would be starting by listening to employee perspectives on the value of a mobility experience, even including things like barriers to accepting a move. They could then share that knowledge with talent and business on a regular basis. You could translate that into, specific actions, and you would have happier employees on assignment. You would also help the organization get to their recruitment goals, retention goals, and development goals, because mobility is now part of that game. So again, I asked the question, can you help here? Is there data or feedback that you can get? There's plenty of evidence when things don't go right on an assignment, and we'll look at that in a little more detail. And I'm sure that you feed that back to the vendors, but is there anything you can do from the services that you provide day to day that accumulate data that may be more useful to your clients than you think? Just moving to the next slide. This is asking our clients, your clients, what initiatives do they have to improve the employee experience during an international assignment or transfer? I'll let you read it here. There's quite a lot of detail. The teal colored is what they are currently doing, and the yellow is what they're planning to do, which of course implies that they haven't got that at the moment. So we've got offering policies that allow employees some flexibility or choice of benefits, automating assignment to transfer workflow, streamlining the employee's point of contact, allowing employees to self-serve aspects of their assignment, tracking goals over the course of their assignment, consultation or counseling to address individual concerns before the assignment, providing assignment or transfer goals, or assigning a mentor. Now, I would say maybe 4 or possibly 5 of those relate to the services that many of you provide as core services to your clients. The first 4 on the left is going to impact us. It's going to impact the service providers. Flexibility and choice of benefits, that's the thing. That's becoming a thing. Automated transfer, assignment and transfer workflow, that's a thing. Streamlining the employee's point of contact. Employees don't want to deal with 12 of us doing our different little jobs any more than your customer wants to deal with 12 vendors and 12 different purchase order numbers as well. There is going to be a requirement for an ability to provide consolidated services, allowing employees to self-serve aspects of their assignments or transfers. Again, that's talking about what services they select. So all of those things, and perhaps the counseling aspect of a pre-assignment is also arguably a service. There's at least 5 things that are either being done at the moment or are being planned that relate to the things that we currently provide our vendors and assignees, our customers, not vendors. So we asked again to indicate if our customers, if our mobility consultants, mobility professionals, if their organization offers employees flexibility in how relocation support is delivered in any of the following ways. Again, this is clearly and directly and obviously affecting what we do. 40% offer a cash lump sum. That number is hugely increased in the last 18 to 24 months. Is that good? I'm not sure it is. The more cash lump sum just represents a lump of cash, the more you're liable to have employees spend it on something else, neglect the duty of care service that they really need and should have always availed of. So you can create problems for yourself while also just increasing your budget. I know that many of us have various views about whether or not they are valuable, and how they're structured is really key to whether they are good or not. 22% have gone for a delivery choice, which allows an employee to choose between a lump sum or relocation services, again, managed by suppliers. 20% are offering a managed lump sum, which is a capped relocation budget against which employees can actually just pick supplier-provided services of their choosing. So again, this is changing. This has come into the fore in the last 2 or 3 years. Again, my question back to you is, what does this mean for you and what you offer? Do you want to consider, if you don't do it already, packaging your offering and your products to fit these trends? Now, I think this is interesting. International assignments don't always fail, but when they do fail, they sometimes fail for not particularly obvious reasons. 44% is actually a lack of career opportunity for the employee. This is more of an internal issue, of course, but it does get to the heart of why people are sent on assignment in the first place. And that's something which companies are going to think about a lot more clearly. And they're going to think more clearly about the nature and terms of assignments. But again, there are things which are not always quite obvious. Lack of family integration in the host location. Now, that's again something which destination service providers can help with, as is the third, which is unmet assignee expectations during the relocation. There are times when a customer will reject or eschew the need for a particular service because they think it's not necessary, and actually it can end up being a deal breaker. If you have an unhappy spouse or unhappy children, and that doesn't improve within the first 6 months, the assignment is finished. I know of one really good example I was given of a family moving from Madrid to Valencia. So no language support was given because you're moving within a country, but the dialect in Valencia was so different to the Castellano spoken in Madrid. The children couldn't understand the other children. The spouse made no friends and wasn't able to settle. The thing was a disaster and had to be pulled. So again, it's making sure not that we're trying to sell as much as possible to our clients, but that they're getting what they need. And in many cases, only what they need, because we're becoming more flexible. So in terms of expectations of attracting employees to accept international assignments in the next year, 40% of companies think that there's going to be difficulty to get people to go on assignments next year. 34% a little bit, 6% a lot more. It helps explain the emphasis just on the employee experience and reinforces the importance of understanding the employee motivations. But mobility nonetheless is going nowhere, and people will continue to move in more diverse locations in more complicated situations and structures. In terms of being much easier, well, you can see there it'll be a bit easier for about 5%, and it'll be no change for the most part, 54%. So that's everything I wanted to share, more or less, on the mobility aspect for the first half. I presented our mobility outlook survey for, I think it was 2018, which was in Dubrovnik. Now, the things, again, when I was preparing that presentation, I was trying to factor it for the audience, destination service providers, and so on. And I was trying to say, well, so what? Why does this matter? And the trends that were coming out were very similar to what has admittedly been a very difficult and strange and exceptional year, but it was the same kind of stuff. There was a need for a streamlined, tech-driven assignment experience and customer experience. People do not want to select various vendors where they can select just a couple. They want to work under one roof, or to get a one-stop shop approach as far as they can, as both regarding their own invoices and service, and the experience of assignees. We were in a very competitive marketplace before COVID happened. We then had an extraordinarily difficult year where travel became impossible in most cases. The fact that we're still here is wonderful, but we emerge into what is still a very difficult and competitive market. How can you differentiate yourselves from your competitors? Well, part of that will be by being able to offer more services by collaborating with others. And again, that's what I said in 2018 has not gone away. People are being asked to do more with fewer staff, with often a reduced budget, for ever more complicated and increasingly tricky and random and strange locations and policies with flex built in. And they want to be an advisor to the business. They want to have a seat at the table when discussions on talent are happening, but they often don't have the data to provide that. They wouldn't know where to look in some cases. They don't have the time in other cases. The extent to which you can distill the information that is involved in the services that you provide into reports which show where things are going well or not, whether assignees are happy or whether not, how things could work better, in a way that they can collate that all and upload that and make that into an easy presentation to make them look good and to help them demonstrate the value to their customer in the business, the more likely they are to hire you and to stick with you. So some things are certainly changing. Other things are following a pattern and a consistent trend. I want to take a moment now to go. I'm just going to go back into the Whova app. My phone has gone to sleep, so I'm just going to wake him up, and I'm going to just see if any questions have emerged during the session. I have a ton of questions, and I'm just going to briefly go through them before we talk about remote work. We did talk about remote work a little bit in the Mobility Outlook survey. I think it would be remiss not to spend a fair bit of time on it, because it's the question that all customers are asking, all mobility professionals are asking. What do we do about remote work? Is it here to stay? What do we do for policies? What is everybody else doing? Okay. So one question is, do I think RMCs should reduce the emphasis on reporting and on the value add provided by service providers if at the end nearly 40% of the customers don't measure the value of GM within the organization, and review of service providers is almost a bottom priority of customers? I would say not to reduce the emphasis on reporting. The fact that customers don't often measure the value of mobility, of global mobility within the organization, is not to say that mobility shouldn't be constantly trying to do this. And certainly from our clients' perspective, they love having that data. It helps them build a case. It helps them show, demonstrate with figures the value that they provide. We don't have to go into reporting for its own sake, but I think we should certainly be having conversations with our clients to see what they need and whether they're getting what they need, and whether we could give them anything else that they need. Another question was whether the 40% offering towards a cash lump sum is a temporary push due to the impact of the pandemic. There was some talk at the beginning of the pandemic, of just chucking people a bit of money, like an exceptional hardship allowance and so on. There was some one-off costs incurred if people had to immediately repatriate, but I would say in general, no. Lump sums are considered an answer. They are an answer. They're not always the answer to the fact that people want to move on often local terms. That they're often millennials happy to try and do everything themselves. It's an effort to be flexible in a changing environment. I think it will evolve. I think how you structure your cash lump sums and what people understand them to be for will determine whether they work or not. But I don't think they're going away anywhere. I think we're going to see, if anything, increasing use of lump sums, although possibly more cleverly managed, so that people don't just think they're getting cash for fun to spend, but that actually they're getting a choice, and they can parse out what is. You shouldn't be including duty of care in lump sum. I don't think that stuff should just be done. You shouldn't be giving people money to go ahead and sort their own visa requirements out, for example. But where people may or may not need other things, that's where I think where it has a value. Another question is, flexible working appears to be here to stay. However, embracing this new normal, would they have significant implications and obligations for both the employer and employee? Absolutely. There are tons of implications and obligations for the employer and employee. I feel like I've almost drafted that as a pretend question, because that's exactly what I'm going to go on to speak about now with remote working. So it's a really good question. I feel like I almost planted it myself, but I will address that right now. So yes, there are obligations and significant ones, and we'll have a look at what those are. I think that's good timing to go on to talk quickly about remote work. So looking ahead, remote work and the impact of COVID on mobility. So very unsurprising. Will remote work requests increase in the next year? 86% of people say yes. People are expecting remote work requests to pick up. It does seem to be here to stay. But there will also be a need for some other alternative assignment types, including shorter term assignments and virtual assignments. On the right-hand column, people are looking at what mobility approaches will get used post-COVID. You've got 46% talking about virtual assignments, which is high, 41% business travelers, 37% short-term assignments, and you can see the rest. So I think, yeah, we've opened a box here, which isn't going to be closed. I mean, people are expecting both domestic remote work and international remote work to become a thing, and many of the leading companies have already accepted that that's the case. There are huge questions not only over regulatory and risk and things that are legally required, but also the whole concept of how you decide what someone is paid is going to get changed as well. So looking at the drivers here, 81% of companies are looking to make changes to their policies. And what are the drivers for change in these policies? Well, more than half want to offer more flexibility to the business. 45% want to reduce cost. 41% want to align to talent strategy. 39% want to offer flexibility to assignees. So, and COVID hasn't stopped policy reviews. In fact, many clients who did manage to find some time during a relative period of quiet did take the time to look at and update policies. But the main drivers, remain the same. It's around flexibility, reduce costs, achieving the goals of the talent strategy. So we looked again as well. We asked about employee sentiment. We asked about employees' general perception of expat opportunities. 79% were excited, 11% were reluctant, 10% were willing. People are still excited about expat opportunities. In fact, I think relative to 10 years ago, this figure will have increased, because you have a generation coming into the workforce who just expect an overseas experience as part of their job experience, as part of a life goal to tick, and the relative amount of people who are grumpily moving from one country to another with 4 kids and turning everything upside down is relatively a smaller part of the overall number and types of moves. So COVID hasn't really reduced employees' willingness to accept international employees. Obviously, though, right at the moment, there are some new concerns to be addressed. We got one particular response, which I included here in the survey, because it indicated that the clients are kind of, they want to be sort of upfront about things, and they've now got a checklist of sorts that creates that has basically a tick box list that need to be checked in the host country to make sure that you've got a successful expat experience. And one of our clients is now doing is the employee's willingness to travel, and concomitant with that, they have a really upfront communication with the employee about what to expect when they arrive, what the business support is going to be, so that the employee experience is generally part of the decision when deciding whether to approve the start of an assignment. And I think that kind of collaboration is so helpful. You empower the employee and give them the information they need without in any way compromising the terms and conditions that on what the business requires from a move. Again, in terms of counseling or mentoring, or being able to be very clear and upfront with an employee about what it's going to be like as soon as they land in this new country, is that something that you guys can help with? I suspect that it is. So we asked about the culture of remote work, and this is how work programs are currently positioned within our clients. There are 4 main ways of looking at it. Just over a third, it exists. It's not promoted. It's ad hoc. It is slightly, now this figure has actually decreased, I think, since because this survey is now about 2 months old, but it's basically, and you can see that nearly 63% of manufacturing or auto companies take this view. Again, you can imagine why. For those companies, they really need people on site. Remote work is a possibility for a much narrower band of their overall workforce. But this is just, it happens. We have it. We don't make a big deal about it. It's a thing. And then secondly, we've got one where it really is used to attract and retain talent. So we're moving from the need for a move to the offer of a move as being valuable in and of itself, and that is actually then promoted by the leadership of those companies. One example we had was we have a client that is very specialized in the chemicals industry, and they had a role where they have roles where they have a need for deep expertise, but where it's very difficult to find that talent in general. And they actively created a remote work policy to attract people to the company, where they didn't want to move, or they couldn't otherwise move to the site of the company itself. And then we've got about 11% where this is a thing that is gaining traction but is not widely used by employees and is unevenly promoted by the leadership. Again, we had an example of a pharma company that decided, right, we need to try and be proactive, get ahead of this remote work game. They created they split their employees into 5 separate categories in terms of who might qualify for remote work. They passed that to the leadership group, but there was a total split in the leadership group in terms of who supported this at the top. And again, so remote work, I think, has a value as a method of attracting and retaining talent. But unless that case is made separately from the breakout of remote working affected by the pandemic, it's going to be hard to find traction, and it's going to be hard to find support at the top. So there are 2 separate things happening. Remote work, I've been remote working since January to last year, so just before the pandemic. It is a thing that pre-existed COVID, but COVID has accelerated this, and it is absolutely the way things are going to go. Now, I wanted to stop here and quickly ask people about their experience of remote working. So this is a question to all of you. If you go back into your EuRA app and you click on session poll, I just asked the question, how have you been enjoying your remote work experience? And I'm going to give just about 30 seconds for you to quickly pop in. It's just a multiple choice question. You can say, not applicable, I've not been working from home, I've had a mixed experience, some pluses and minuses, I haven't enjoyed it, or it's been nice and it'll be hard to go back to an office. So I'll just give you a second to fill out some of those. And I appreciate your response, it's been great. So I suspect, by the way, that many responses will be driven by whether we've had to deal with children running around the place outside school while also trying to do a job. I've not been in that position, and I'm in awe of people who've managed to do that. So just looking at the polls, we've got 68 answers in so far, and goodness, so 2/3 of people have said they've had a mixed experience, some benefits and some drawbacks. Nearly all of us have been working from home. About 1/3 have said it's actually been really good and it would or will be hard to go back to an office. And a small number have said, no, it's not worked for them. More stressed working from home, can't wait to get back to the office. So it's a thing. It's not going anywhere, but neither is it the new norm. So again, this is just looking at what does mobility actually do in terms of remote working. Well, a lot of it is in terms of the compliance stuff, obviously, immigration, tax issues, relocation, and then in terms of who owns the actual policy. So about 70% were advising on situations where the employees were stuck. 2/3 were helping evaluate ad hoc requests for new remote working arrangements. This is where mobility really comes into the fore, not only to try and shape sensible decisions, but if companies cannot get ahead of ad hoc requests being made and making exceptions here, there, and everywhere, it'll become completely unmanageable. So there is definitely a compliance aspect here. In terms of how we can help, well, of course, immigration is one thing, or if we help with tax compliance and payroll, that's another. The benefits that typically are provided with people who put their hand up to work remotely are fewer. But again, that's not the whole story. So about 40% of mobility think that in future, they will be moderately involved in remote work policy, 31% heavily involved. So this is not something that's going away. So how common are they? Well, 1/3 of your clients currently have a policy at the moment. Just under 1/3 are developing one. 14% are allowing it, but don't have a policy. So that's asking for trouble, I think. And only 7% don't allow remote work, and that may be for specific industry-specific reasons. So of the 34% that have a global policy with country-specific addendums, 24% have individual and country-specific policies as well. These figures will, of course, only increase. And by the way, we're nearly at the end of our slides, so it has been a very quick whistle-stop tour through how our clients feel about the year and the upcoming year. Half of organizations require remote workers to verify work authorization in the desired location. 7% of orgs do not require this. Again, there could be significant compliance issues here. And again, what I'm showing you here on the right is when an employee asks to work in another country where they don't have work authorization, what do companies say? Well, 1/3 say no. 1/5 say, we'll sponsor work authorization and assist with associated costs. Very few say we'll sponsor but not cover the costs, and 6% handle on a case-by-case basis. 8% are still considering this. So these are live issues. But at the moment, the onus for getting work authorization is on the individual. Most companies do require verification for cross-border work, but it could also apply to domestic people on visas. So there's a slight uptick in companies that will help with work authorization if remote work is part of the talent strategy as well, I should add. In terms of the tax situation, again, tax is an entirely separate matter, and that will be for relatively few specialists within what we do. But there are huge potential headaches. Further to the question asked previously in the app, there are personal, tax, social security issues, corporate tax issues around, permanent establishments. There are a whole number. There's withholding obligations, reporting obligations, all sorts of things. Even within the EU, they have their own specific requirements. So again, the implications will often depend on whether the remote working location is within the same country or if it's cross-border. If it's in the same country, it's a lot easier. Most companies just aren't thinking about this. But cross-border can cause serious issues, and companies would be well served to do the due diligence to avoid that risk. In terms of remote work policy, again, I just mentioned this. I said earlier that the whole concept of why do we pay people what we pay them is changing. It used to be that regular workers got paid according to the cost of labor and wherever they are. And expats got paid partly to do with the cost of labor back at home, but then also paid, and their pay was adjusted to reflect the cost of living, hence COLA payments and that sort of thing. That is all being merged together. And everyone is thinking about this ad hoc at the same time, but companies are going to start to adjust basically what they pay people if they work in different parts of the country. One of the two tech giants expects half of their staff to work remotely from all around the US, not in the Bay Area, which is the most expensive place to live in America. That's going to have an impact on bonuses and on pay scales of people who are working in Idaho or Kentucky as opposed to Santa Clara. In terms of benefits to provided to remote work, again, I just wanted to mention this. 45% aren't providing any benefits. A few are providing bits and bobs for phones and office stuff. But again, bear in mind that this is remote workers. Remote workers can mean a number of things. There are people who put their hand up and say, I now want to work from somewhere else within the country. There are new hires or existing employees who say, I was working for AirINC in London, but now I'm working outside Porto in the Douro Valley. Can I have something? But don't forget, there are also, you could also include virtual assignments here. The virtual assignments are where somebody fills a role, say in AirINC London. They want to move to AirINC Hong Kong, but they can't for COVID reasons or whatever, or an unwillingness. But they will go on business trips, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. And if that's the case, again, it may well be that despite remote work seeming to cause a huge spanner in the services provided by DSPs, that ultimately, and in fact, it may be that there are still services that we can provide. And again, per what I said earlier, this is becoming a thing, but it's not going to become a thing for everybody. As the world gets more complicated and as the workforce gets more complicated, we will need different solutions and clients will need to be flexible. But ultimately, there is still going to be a need for people to travel from A to B, whether it's short-term, medium-term, or long-term. And in that regard, the question is, how do we provide best services most cost efficiently to our clients and the supplementary data that gives them what they need to look good when they take a seat at the table for talent management? There are a number of things I haven't got round to saying in the interests of time, but I am aware we're upon the hour, and I don't think I've had any further questions. I will ask, I will double check. So that's all the questions I think I've answered, and it being nigh on 4 o'clock, I'm going to stop there, and thank you very much for your patience and time. I hope it was useful, and I reiterate, if there's anything you need, this presentation, country cuts or anything else, let me know and I'll get that sent to you. Thank you very much, and I'll hand back over.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Carl. And I think that was on time to the second. So amazing. And I'd just like to say, I think actually after the 14, 15 months that we've all experienced, I found that encouraging. I thought the data, the results from the companies asked was actually really positive. You know, some of the messages that were coming through there were there's greater appreciation of mobility, which hopefully indirectly means greater appreciation of all of us and what we do. Stronger partnerships, I think, have been formed, and that was mentioned in the session yesterday. And I think increased flexibility is not new, but has just been exacerbated. There's been a catalyst for that flexibility over the last year and a bit, and that provides opportunity. So yeah, I found it really encouraging. And then on the lump sum issue, I think we'll just be interested to see how that evolves. I'd like to just quote one comment on the app, if I may. Adrian Leach says, when talking about the cash lump sum, the organisation is evading its vicarious liability. And I would wholeheartedly agree with that, but we'll see how that evolves over time. So one other point, I thought the poll, thank you very much for completing that. Interesting result where I think most people have mixed feelings about working from home. And I think that's probably reflected in some of the largest companies in the world changing their policies around not necessarily expecting everybody to work remotely, but having that hybrid approach of working in the office, but maybe slightly less than before. So yeah, thank you very much for being so engaged and participating and adding your comments and questions and taking part in the poll. So thank you. Okay, next we have Tracy Kautzmann, our Inspiring Ignite session. Tracy is going to be presenting a topic called Making an Impact. See what she's done there. Making an impact is about volunteering and the joy it brings. So without further ado, here is Tracy Kautzmann. Thank you.
So let me ask you, how do you make a difference in the world? Well, I found a way through my job. I work for a company that is socially responsible, and they offer employees 2 paid days per year to pursue community volunteering. Not only in my job do I get to work with individuals, helping them move forward in their career and life choices, but I'm also encouraged to contribute to the world around me. I feel fortunate to work at a company that supports volunteering in a big way. Recently, in an all-hands meeting, my company celebrated us. It was a celebration of the volunteer work we do outside of our work hours. There is so much we can do to help make our world a better place. Do you know what volunteering gives us? It enriches our sense of belonging. We build stronger relationships. We experience real life in our community, and we use our personal resources to benefit others we may otherwise not see or know. Take my colleague, Patience, for example. She volunteers as a mentor with Turner 12. This program mentors students to stay in school longer. It nurtures, exposes, equips these students with the skills and the knowledge and the support that they need to stay in school. I mean, talk about unlocking potential. Just makes me so motivated to work with colleagues who care so much about their community. What about Gail? Well, Gail volunteers at the community cupboard. It's a food bank in her area. Recently, the organization told her that since the onset of the pandemic, the demand has increased 7 times the preceding years. And why does she do this? Well, because she believes in paying it forward. I could go on and tell you about Anna, who fosters homeless pets, or Liz, who's connected to an organization that helps families pay their bills, or Sarah, who volunteers to help families affected by home fires, and Ashley, who campaigns for the United Way. But I only have 5 minutes to bring you back to why I love working for a company that encourages us to connect with and contribute to the world around us, whether that be within our immediate neighborhood or beyond. It shapes our corporate culture and identity. It inspires our staff to live out our mission, and that is one relationship at a time. It also enriches our relationships professionally and personally, enables us to make that positive impact that we strive for with our clients, those we partner with, and those we coach. More importantly, I would say it allows us to think beyond ourselves and see communities and world with more empathy and care, real action on our part. So you may be asking yourself, well, what about me? What am I doing to contribute to the world around me? My sister and I founded a nonprofit organization that funds microloans for women in developing countries. Our mission is to help empower these women to achieve a better life for themselves and their family, and to help, in a very small way, break that cycle of poverty these women would otherwise be stuck in. I wish you could all meet our youngest mother, Betty. Betty is receiving a microfinance to set up her own baking business. She just finished baking school and is launching out with her first sales. As a matter of fact, she's just now paying back a small part of her loan. For me, giving back to the world around me means three things: to help women like Betty have the opportunity to grow, to help these individuals challenge themselves and through resiliency work towards that better world for themselves, and empower women to change their situation. When I can finally get back to Ethiopia and Congo again, I'll be working closely with our in-country and trusted administrator to finalize potential female candidates who wish to start a business. Stay tuned. This is only one of many projects to come. I love working for a company that encourages their employee to connect and contribute to the world around us. I love our mission statement to make that positive impact one relationship at a time. It's given me the opportunity to make that difference. So let me ask you a question. How do you make a difference in the world? Can I challenge you to start volunteering? Or just maybe you want to look into how your company can support your small part in making this world a better place. To be encouraged at work, to contribute to the world around me, that they believe it makes us better individuals, is yet another reason why I love my company.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Tracy. I'm always impressed with her passion and her energy, and just the amount of activity she crams into her life is remarkable, and still finds time to organise for all of us to get together on Zoom and have a drink occasionally. It's fantastic. So thank you ever so much, Tracy. That was great. That brings day 3 to a close, I'm afraid. I'd just like to thank everybody for attending. I have received a text throughout the presentation to say that attendee numbers are up on the previous 2 virtual summits or forums that we've done in the past. So thank you ever so much for attending this time. I think your appetite for webinars and for virtual conferences seems to be unwavering, which is great. I don't know how long it'll last. I'm just hoping that when you eventually run out of enthusiasm for joining something like this, it'll coincide with us being able to actually meet in person, hopefully towards the end of this year, where we can meet up face to face, have a drink, possibly even have a hug, who knows, but not have a mute button or a leave the meeting button or connectivity issues, and I cannot wait. So yeah, looking forward to that, and thanks again for joining. Tomorrow, day 4, is hosted by Pierre Geronimo, my board colleague, and includes a session from our very own Sophie and Simon on direct clients. So hopefully you can tune in again and listen to that and participate as you have done today. So thank you very much, and hopefully see you very soon.